What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the show. So what's the strategy moving into this 2026 midterm election when it comes to Democrats and Republicans? How are they looking at their chances of maintaining control of the House, maintaining control of the Senate when we're looking at Republicans? And when we're looking at Democrats, do they see a possibility of winning in the House and winning in the Senate to where they now have majority? So that's what I want to focus on in this video. We're going to take a look and a listen to Kevin McCarthy and Manchin. Now, both of these politicians, Manchin is no longer in office, as well as McCarthy's no longer in office. So they're on the sidelines now, just talking about what they think should happen. But it's an interesting conversation. It was on C-SPAN, so I want to show it to you, and we'll talk a little bit about it. Now, there are some things in here that I don't agree with as far as their strategy, and we'll talk about that as we watch the video. But first off, let me tell you a little bit about myself. I have a political science degree, over 15 years working in political campaigns. And the goal in this video is to take real data, real trends, and see how that impacts the 2026 midterm election. If that sounds like something interesting to you, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share the video with your family and friends. Okay, so let's take a look and listen to the video. Remember, this is on C-SPAN, Kevin McCarthy, and Manchin. Here we go.
Because I heard you chirp a little bit when we were talking about Democrats and their approval ratings. Yes, Mr. McCarthy is right. People are not loving the Democrats.
And I think they probably showed a poll, and I've seen some polling when we're looking at Democrats versus Republicans in Congress. The approval ratings are really down there, 35% for Republicans, 32% for Democrats, but they're both in the same ballpark. But nonetheless, that's what they're talking about here.
Democratic Party right now. What do Dems need to do here? What are they up against?
Well, the American people are saying, who do we like least? We don't like either one, but who do we like least? That's what they've said. And Republicans are better. They like them. They like the Democrats least. They do the Republicans. They're not pleased with either one. We're going to have to get back to governing, and the president's going to have to get back. Calm it down, Mr. President, a little bit. We need a leadership. We need people. We need you as a voice that wants to unite, and he's not giving us that voice. So I like a lot of the things that he's done. I like securing the border. I thought the Democrats were crazy on asylum at the border. And I think that's given the president a lot of cover. Let me give you one other barometer, too, and I don't know if Kevin will agree with me or not. But the Tennessee race, you had a special election down in Tennessee, Kevin, and the Democrats were saying, oh, we only lost by 9 points. If they would have had a centrist, moderate Democrat, such as Abigail Spanberger or Mikey Sherrill, they could have won that race there. That was a winnable race for Democrats, but they can't get out of their own way. They went with a real far progressive person on the left. And that's not going to work. It's just not going to work. And Kevin's right. Democrats have lost more registration, people who are registered as Democrats, since the November election of 24 than the Republicans, and they've gained. So if you think this country is going left, and if the Democrat progressives think that they're going to win from the far left, they're just throwing, and Texas is a perfect example right now. They're just kind of throwing that one up. What they have running against. The
quality of the candidate matters.
Okay, so before McCarthy talks, I do want to show you what I was talking about with the favorable, unfavorable. And so this is what I was talking about when it comes to approval, job approval. Republicans in Congress, 29%. Democrats in Congress, 24%. They're both way underwater. They're both in bad shape. But when it comes to the Democrats, you have to think about it like this. When you have, let's look at the Republicans first. So you have the Republicans, they're in control of the House, they're in control of the White House, they're in control of the Senate. And so you have Republican voters that are satisfied with the fact that Republicans are in control. They won. When it comes to Democrats, Democrats lost. And so you have some Democrats that are not happy with the Democratic Party. And they're coming out. And so when you ask them, what do you think about the Democrats in Congress? They're saying, you know what? I don't like it. Either they don't like the policy or they don't like what's going on, how Democrats are handling different situations. I'll give you a good example. The government shutdown. We saw Democrats forced the government shutdown, right? So because they couldn't get the 60 votes that they needed in the Senate. And so that is why we saw a government shutdown over the healthcare issue, healthcare credits. But what did Democrats do in the end? You had 8 Democrats that came alongside Republicans in the Senate to vote to open back up the government. So we saw government shutdown for over 45 days. And then Democrats said, okay, well, we'll give, if you give us a promise that we can take up these healthcare credits, then we'll go ahead and give. And so then what was the outcome? They talked about healthcare credits. They brought it up in the Senate. It didn't go anywhere. And so now you have Democrats that were looking at this and saying, what are these Democrats doing in Congress? And so that also hurts the Democrats in Congress when you have other Democrats that are saying, look, you guys are just not fighting hard enough. You're not doing what we want you to do. You're not representing us. But a lot of those Democrats are not going to go over and vote for a Republican as a result of that. They're just dissatisfied with what Democrats are doing. And so that's something that we should be talking about as well. So both numbers are bad. Yes, you have 29%, 24%, 25%. That's bad. We shouldn't see polls that low, but that shows us that, look, if you want change, you have to vote the right people in office, whether they be Democrat or Republican. But ultimately, when we're looking at the stats there, it's not really showing us much. And then if we go a step further, and so when we look at the generic ballot here, you see that Democrats right now, and this is, if we can zoom in just a little bit, you see that Democrats are at +4. And so they have the advantage in generic ballot. And then if we go back and we can look, I mean, this goes back to November, you see Democrats are blue and Republicans are red. So if Republicans have an advantage, you had the RMG research showing Republicans at +4. But other than that, we're seeing Democrats across the board. And if you go down even further here, you can go all the way back to, if we're going all the way back to the beginning of the year, you see at some point Republicans did have an advantage. They were winning in the generic ballot. And some of the different pollsters were showing that. But you see a lot of blue here. And that's showing that Democrats have been able to consistently, in the polling, they've been able to consistently stay ahead of Republicans. And historically speaking, the party that is not in power generally will take back the House and sometimes the Senate in that midterm election.
I'll give you an example. When Nancy Pelosi was elected Speaker, I was elected Republican leader. In those 4 years, we turned it around and won the majority by 5 seats. We were able to win 5 more seats in California without redrawing the lines. We won 5 more in New York.
Right.
We elected the most Republican women, the most Republican minorities. We ran in seats we hadn't won before, along the border of Texas where they didn't think Republicans could. So if you get a better candidate, better message, you can win. So who's going to be the nominees for the Democrats? Are they going to go the Mamdani route? Are these going to be socialist Democrats? I mean, Joe was right about Tennessee. It's competitive. What you really want to look at, if you really want to follow it, don't look at the governor races. If you look at the 2 governor races they won, they didn't run far left Democrats. They won 2 moderate congresswomen. One went to the Naval Academy and one was the CIA. Somebody you don't really see in the Democrats. But if you look at those state races, the Democrats beat every Republican that sat in seats as incumbents. That Kamala Harris won that district, and they won the races that Trump won up to 4.5%. So if you extrapolate that on the current districts, you would say Democrats have a better chance of winning the majority, but only to about 220, maybe 223. So it's total jump ball. Republicans are in the majority. I would do as a wake-up call. No longer give people breaks from not being in Congress. Don't sit there and put a bill by the day. Put a strategy, right? And start with the election day and work backwards. What do you want in the voters' mind?
And I think also...
Okay, and let's talk a little bit about the Tennessee race that both Manchin and McCarthy were talking about. And so in that Senate race, the Republican won by 9 points. And what Manchin was saying is if they chose someone that was more moderate, moderate Democrat, they would have had a chance of flipping that seat. And so, and that could be true. But the big story here is that Trump, in 2024, he won that same district by 22 points. And now fast forward to 2025, you have a special election, the Republican wins by 9 points. The big story there was a Democrat, a progressive Democrat, outperformed the Republican by double digits. That's the big story. And so, yes, Manchin's looking at this and, it's easy to sit back and say, after the election, say, well, they should have ran somebody else and they probably would have had a chance to win. But the reality is Democrats did win in the sense that they outperformed. And we're seeing this. We saw this in 2025. We saw a lot of special elections. Democrats were outperforming Republicans. And that's showing us that voters have shifted. They're starting to shift away from the Republican Party. So even if we're looking at less registration or Democrats losing when it comes to voter registration, and you might have a lot of these people going to, independent, they might not be moving over to the Republican Party, but they might be moving to independent. But that doesn't mean that they still wouldn't vote for a Democrat. That just means that they're unaffiliated. And so what happened in Tennessee is good news for the Democrats, and it's a wake-up call for Republicans, because now Republicans are looking at it and saying, look, if we have a 10-point lead over someone, or if Trump won a district by 10 points, that could be a toss-up if we're looking at what happened in Tennessee. And so that's the big story there. And so I want to know what you guys think about the discussion. So let me know in the comments below. What do you think about McCarthy? What do you think about Manchin, their strategy? Do you think that Democrats will be able to take back control of the House in 2026? Let me know that down below. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up. Please subscribe for more. And remember, stay informed, stay engaged, and I'll talk to you in the next one. Bye. So that's all we have for this video. Make sure if you guys want to send me an email, you can do that, david@thetecshow.com. Like the video, subscribe for more, and check out these videos over here for some more great content. Talk to you later. Bye.